This episode is brought to you by Cars Commerce, one platform to simplify everything about buying and selling cars, and one partner to empower your business. Welcome to this special Disruptive Forces in Retail Automotive episode presented by the David Spizak Show and Disruptive Growth Solutions. Welcome to our panel discussion on inventory mix. And why is inventory mix such a big deal? I mean, you would think any dealership, without even trying, as they look at their used car inventory on any given day, will have a mix of inventory. So why does it matter? Well, it matters big time, as you're about to learn, because it has an impact on everything from sales turn to the number of VDPs, to the return on ad spend, to your profitability, and so much more. I'm very fortunate to be joined by three spectacular dealers here. I've got Joe Blanco, who is the head of used car director over at the Sheehy Auto Group, right? COO and head of used car in Sheehy. Is that correct, Joe?
Not the COO, but yeah, the used car director for the group.
Used car director. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I have this Nostradamus-like feature, and I could kind of see in the future at some point. So I was trying to give you credit where you're going, Joe. But right now, he's the spectacular used car director at the Sheehy Auto Group, which is a remarkably successful organization, and in no small part on the used car side, thanks to Joe. I've got Boris Lopez, and Boris is the general manager. And Boris, you're on both Toyota and Kia, are you not?
Yeah, the CEO of the operations.
COO of operations for both South Dade Toyota and South Dade Kia. And by the way, just for context, how many cars are sold between those two organizations?
It's three. We have two Kia dealers. We sold around 1,200 new cars and close to 400 used cars.
So just struggling operations, selling only 1,600 cars between three stores. By the way, Joe, how many used cars are sold at Sheehy every month?
We sell about 2,000 used cars a month.
Holy cow. Wow. And Mr. Adam Arens, another remarkable organization. I have profound respect for Adam. I'm fortunate to have met you as well. He's the owner of Patriot Auto Group, and you know, one of the things that I really love and appreciate is just you are pure innovation personified. You're just always looking for what's next. And while being grateful and thankful to your associates for everything that they do, but you guys are just always looking to get better, and I love that about you. And last but not least, we've got Danny Zaslavsky, who is the co-founder and CEO of VinCue. And VinCue is a remarkable solution that is taking, it's hard to call it inventory management solution, because when you look at inventory management solutions, there's some others in there that really pale in comparison. They're not the same modern, sophisticated, forward-leaning solution that you've created. And I'm fortunate, Danny, that you have agreed to join us and moderate this. And as I said offline, you're the first person I thought of when it came to inventory mix, because it literally is something that has been a passion of yours, ideal inventory. And I believe that all started for you when you were literally born into a dealership that is the same age, I think, as you are, right? 41 years old,
Yes,
Country
sir.
Hills Motors. And so there's a guy literally born on the showroom floor and been talking about inventory mix for a long time. Thank you for taking the time to moderate this incredibly important discussion. For those watching, you're about to hear without any question from some of the most innovative dealers out there in the marketplace, and they are kind enough to share their insights, their feedback, and their perspective on how you can do things today to help transform your dealership, your used car operation, starting with achieving the ideal inventory mix. Danny, if you'd be so kind, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, let's jump right in. So, there's things that I think about around the basics. When you think about the basics, other industries have supply chain management, and supply chain management allows them to think procurement, right? They've got people dedicated to understanding what should we be buying? Where should we be buying it from? What's hot? What does affordability look like for our consumers? How did you used to think about it? Before we talk about how we think about it today, how did we used to think about it? Because I bet you there's people out there that are going to be listening that may think about it the way you used to think about it. Aaron, can I start with you?
Well,
Great
I would
job.
say how I used to think about it was
I think
keep your trades
at
as
least-
best you can.
Yes,
If you're going to
please.
wholesale them,
Thank you.
wholesale
It's
them
been
fast. So
going well.
that
This
determines
is-
a big part
this
of
is a
it.
good way to do
And I'm
it,
going
and
to
I
say
like not having
before
to name
massive
the whole
used
thing.
car loaner car fleets,
Thank you.
and go to the auction and buy a lot of your brand, and then try to buy value outside your brand. So that used to be 20 years ago, and only have one or two people who could actually acquire vehicles other than your sales managers who were appraising them.
So you had a couple people who were in charge of acquisition for the whole store or stores that you had at the time.
Let's put it this way: my thumb was involved in all of the acquisitions outside of the store. Inside the store, we obviously traded for everything that we could, bought everything that we could, kept everything that we could.
And was wholesale at the time a profit center for you or a loss?
It's always been marginally profitable for us, in that we've always wholesaled junk, and there's always been enough room in junk that your mistakes are made up by your other mistakes. And that's the bad mistakes and the good mistakes.
Got it. So give me one last sense of your org chart back then. If we're going to contrast it later, what did your org chart look like when it came to leadership?
Owner, general manager, same person. Sales manager, GSM, typical car dealership. That at that point, when we started our first store, we were selling, call it 200 cars a month, new and used combined, and the ratio was 6 to 5, 6 to 4.
Joe, how did you used to think about it? You shared with me that you've been in the position or with the group since 2016, and I imagine you've seen some evolution, especially with some of the seasons of change that we've been through recently.
Yeah. I think, I used to preach, hey, trade your cars at 83, 84% cost to market, sell them for 93, 94% cost to market. And if you do that, you're doing a really good job. And I think we all got smart there's a lot more to it than that, especially the last couple of years. So.
Right. Put in a VIN number, price rank, cost to market, price to market, V rank, price rank, rock and roll. Here's the number, right?
I'm the smartest guy in the room by pricing my car 6% of them.
Right. And we're high-fiving on appraisals, not when the actually car sells. So that's funny. Okay. Any other thoughts on how you used to think about it?
I think we also, just to echo, but yeah, I mean, stick to your brand. Don't go too far, and find what works. And, frankly, I'm not sure that has changed too much for us, but the other thing was, we've always tried to retail every single car that we can, but frankly, we started to realize maybe we have some smarter ways to move some inventory around. That makes more sense for the right store for us.
Okay, well, hold on that. Don't go too deep in that because Aaron might have a few thoughts. Boris, how did you used to do it?
Well, that was funny when I was hearing what experience. But 2010, 2011, I think we were a low volume store. It was only the Toyota store back in that time. We kept every trade possible. Was not any tool that allows us to price to market, but we price $5,000 over whatever cost we have. We have sales manager making the decision how much we put on the cars. That sometimes we need to allow them to put more money, because if not, we're not going to sell the new car. And again, pricing was $5,000 over. We keep the car until it's there. Like, doesn't matter if it's a year after we sell the car, we make 2,000, and we were happy that, hey, we make 2,000 in a car that was a year sitting there. Was not many tools we used back in that time. Again, I say low volume. The structure was GM, same person, like a couple sales manager. They're the one deciding how much to put on the cars. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Like you have the salespeople come in to bump the trades because for whatever reason, nothing logical behind. It's like, hey, I want to have more money for that car. Like no reason. And the managers sometimes decide to do it or not. We keep all wholesale nothing unless the car doesn't run. That was the only thing. We have somebody coming and we used to use Junk's yard to put those cars back in that $500, $600. That's it. Like that was the whole mentality.
Yeah, we've all read that book.
Okay.
We've all lived that.
Some of us lived it for a long time, based on being born in the 50s, I think. So
yeah, some of us are still living it. I mean, I know in my own business, getting either hit over the head of, hey, it's time to change. My favorite quote, I've said 1,000 times, is pain pushes, vision pulls. You're either pushed by pain to surrender and you're not going to change, or one day maybe you're going to say, you know what, it's more fun to be pulled by vision. So I want to move towards that. Adam, you and I talked about this. Before we get into like, what are we doing today? There was an inflection point where you said, I don't have a competitive advantage anymore. Things need to change. My org chart potentially needs to change. There were some aha moments before you started making those changes towards, we're going to get into numbers here in a little bit, but I want to share a little bit more about the pain because I know there's a lot of us out there that are listening that are also living that today. What were the aha moments you were having that moved you towards a different way of operating?
Well, I think the aha moments were that cars became more difficult to acquire, right? So there was a time, talk about my Subaru business 20 years ago, where I could go to Florida and buy every car that had a Subaru on it and win that car, and nobody was aware of it. And we quickly grew to become not only bigger in new, but bigger in used, and ship the cars and deal with whatever failures there were, and it worked, right? It just absolutely did. And then everybody became aware that Subarus were kind of getting to be like Toyotas anywhere in the country. That scarcity and quality were creating tremendous demand on those vehicles, and I couldn't buy them any place in the country at any major competitive advantage unless I wanted to spend the time and acquire single unit cars by a great deal of time on the internet. And then everybody had access to the same piece of information. Everybody was chasing value on high demand cars, right? And that's hard to do, but you determine what your niche is, focus on that niche, and then you try to expand that so that you're acquiring more of the right vehicles, and then you start focusing on the processes that allow you to buy and sell them in the same market. And when I say in the same market, in the same 30-day period, right? So the right car at the right price in the wrong condition doesn't sell. The right car at the wrong price in the right condition might sell, but you only have control of those three variables, and one of them that you have no control over, and that's the right car. But you do have control over the right price and the right condition. And so we started a process where we started using data and educating many more buyers.
So let's pause on that for a minute, because
Sure.
I grew up in a world where I remember the days of, and I branded it. It was called keeping people stupid. I was never a fan of keeping people stupid because it's like, oh, they don't need access to that, or we can't share that information with them, or they're not trained enough to have this tool. And I watched that happen at my own store for a short period of time until we changed it, but I certainly watched it happen in others. You obviously decided not to keep anybody stupid.
Correct. And I think that's the easiest place that you can find out if that's the philosophy is if you have somebody working the service lane in a store that does $500,000 to $1 million or $3 million in service, and they can't put money on a car and they have to bring it to somebody who's sitting in a chair, who's staring at a computer.
Yep.
What you're telling them is that you're not qualified to do something that people who make $18 an hour at CarMax do all day, every day.
Yes, we're going to get to that. That's a big point. So we're gonna go deep on data here in a minute. Boris, what were some of your aha moments that forced you to say no more?
I think when data start playing a role into the business, like more information, like obviously the internets are getting better, more information from the websites, not only the third party is internally, like start seeing like why people are, spend more time watching these type of cars or not, like what type of car I should have, why these cars more relevant than others, and obviously start seeing that about pricing all around. and education about what a good performance look like, less than like sitting on my desk and trying to have the best possible. It's more like, okay, this is a good operation. Like, why are they doing this way? Why they're making a ton more money than us? Like, it's not like I'm gonna sell 40 cars, making 5,000 and having $200,000. No, I can sell 250 and
You
kind of
started being, yeah,
project.
you started being
It's
curious about the data
yeah,
versus
it's like data and education. Like, again, like going out and seeing what a good performance look like, and start seeing these operations that do a phenomenal job, using the same tools we had, and then that start the research about, okay, can we do it the same way? Can we do it better? Because I think it's a lot of things that happen in different states and different regions. Like some people can do one thing, and but again, understanding this is possible, this is not, this is what we should measure. Like, obviously, we're coming from a negative interest rate, like we're moving today, obviously, but in the past, that plays a factor. Like having the car sitting here for this long, now it's a factor for us, and today is more a factor than that back in that time on the high moments. But still, like, I don't want to keep a car sitting here for a year. Like,
well,
I
no.
should be
So
moving to start this
yeah.
faster.
So speaking of that, I did a
More
little homework.
conscious about it.
Yeah, I did a little homework, and you guys currently, I believe, have 650 cars new on the ground, and a few hundred used. And your Kia Homestead store churns at almost 16 times a year. Your Miami store churns at 15 times a year, Kia Miami, and your Toyota Miami store churns 19 times a year. Those are some crazy numbers. And in order to be able to do that while holding gross, while being able to have the throughput for days to market and then days to sell, that's some radical changes in process and changes in technology to be able to do that kind of volume.
Discipline. A lot of discipline, a lot of process that people buy into, and kind of having the right leadership on the group, and making people follow that, and believe on the strategy. That's a key.
That's
for
amazing.
sure.
Well, thank you. We're going to go deeper on that here in a moment. Joe, can I go to you? What were some of the aha moments that either you had or people on your team had that said, nope, no more, we're changing the way we're doing this?
Yeah, I think that just over the last couple of years, I mean, we, as inventory got scarcer and scarcer, we realized that, hey, if you're going to pay all the money, you better find the right car. And
Hello?
and to me, you know, I think,
Hi, baby.
unlike some of you guys, I've only been in the business for 15 years now, but
only 15 years.
well, in terms of
Right now.
my used car experience, I was blessed to have some very good mentors that didn't have a lot of the bad habits. I think that I hear about a lot, and for us, it's just stay disciplined and working our process, and and I'm glad to be involved in this conversation, because I frankly, we hadn't spent as much time, I think, as we should have on inventory mix, specifically prices, or any specific makes and models. We had a little more shotgun approach to it, and I'm going to be coming out of this with some good ideas, I think.
Good. Yeah, only 15 years, man. Only 5 years. There's a gift in that, because you're not cursed with some of the legacy thinking or legacy technology, right, that exists. Speaking of legacy tech, Adam, I want to talk about, because the point of this is how to identify the right product mix for your store. You and I talked, and we talked about tenants, right? What's going on in your market? What's going on at your store? What's going on in your CRM? What's going on with your competition? Let's talk about data and how you don't keep your people stupid, and how you change your org chart to help them win.
Well, let me say this, and maybe it's an aha, right? Everybody talks about AI. I'm going to talk about IA, and that's intelligent agnostic, right? So just let the data tell you what it should tell you, and then don't deny the things that don't make sense to you. So on top of the data, there's things that you can do based on you being in the store and getting feedback from your associates, from your salespeople, from what we are taking, what we're not taking. And then you have these multi-layered strategies of not only who can acquire cars, but what the effort is to go out and acquire cars and what that strategy is. And so let's go back to that person who's working the service lane, who's bubbly, who engages people and puts the note in their text the night before and lets them know that, if you're interested, we're offering free analysis of your current vehicle value. Would you like it when you're in the store? It will take less than 1 minute of engagement to provide that for you. And then people saying yes. But then the reality is that the only person who can put the number on the car is the guy that doesn't get out of the chair. It just stares at the computer and gives a number without even looking at the car, right? So you need to have processes, educate those processes, and vet out today's objections to those processes, et cetera, and then hold people accountable. And I don't mean for this to sound soft and squishy. I don't have a used car manager. I need more used cars. I need more people to buy cars. Now, the strategy that we have that's worked for us is to hold different standards on margin based on the acquisition methodology. So that is, a trade gives us our best yield and our best turn. Our second best is buying a car through the lane that doesn't get traded. Our third best is our vehicle acquisition team, and those are people who we direct what vehicles we need them to buy. We train them, and we've had tremendous success with people who have not previously sold cars. It's not for a failed person. It's for a disciplined person who can follow the data as an agnostic and then apply the intelligence through weekly or daily meetings with management. This is what we're looking for. Yes, you can make the mistake. And by the way, there's no yield when you don't buy the car, right? So yes, we have to support you through the mistakes, but we all, the three of us, and Danny at your company, all need to buy more cars. So our turns are great, but we all need more cars, right? And there are people out there, because of their brand, that are selling 3-to-1 used to new. And with us, with import brands and highline brands, that's not the case, right? So we're good. We know what we're doing. We just don't do it enough. So now we're in this growth methodology of continuing to train more people. And by the way, when you're buying cars inside your dealership through a vehicle buying center and actively through your service lane, your dealership looks crazy busy early in the morning.
That's exactly right.
A good way to get your day going.
So, I've been obviously dreaming about supply chain management for automotive for a really long time. And you said, reverse it, IA. I think that's really interesting because there's so many insights that we need to take into account in order to understand what the ideal inventory mix, competitive strategy, market demand, your own sales, audience data from your CRM, your own sales. God forbid you only look at that. You live in an echo chamber.
The data that you get out of your website and how many times people looked at your car and then whether or not they became interested and where they went from that time, how long did they spend on that? All of that's available to you to allow you to switch them into other vehicles, et cetera. But if you have a car out there that you think is the right car at the right price and the right condition, and you get no leads and no drives over the course of 24 hours, one of those things could be wrong.
That's right. That's exactly right. Joe, why don't you piggyback off of that for your group, sir?
Yeah, I think exactly what Adam said is, I love how he said that was different margin expectations based on where you're acquiring the car. And I think training that out of some of our managers that have been around a while was and is one of our biggest struggles because we've been putting a big focus on buying cars off the street. We're spending money on SEM. We're building a Sheehy buys cars platform. We've had some good success with that. And, having them understand, hey, the name of the game in that business is give the customer a firm, fair offer up front and transparently. So training that out of our managers has been a fun thing we've been working on, but I am happy to say we've made a lot of progress. I'm not saying we're perfect, but to me, then the other thing as far as acquiring inventory off the street is just making it easy and transparent, right? And I think Dave Spisak mentions it before is what industry is a salesperson? You ask them for a price and they have to say, well, let me go talk to the manager, right? But I want the salesperson to walk the trade and do all these different things. And, and then they're going to be really good negotiators, but they have no idea what the trade's worth. So to me, it's just empowering our people. And, I think we'd all be surprised at actually how good they can be if you let them run with it. So.
Yeah, I share this algorithm for innovation. And it's this idea that people, you, me, people listening, have ideas. And those ideas hopefully turn into process. The thing that I hope we all think about is process is the champion, because Adam, you're innovating on process. Joe, you're innovating on process. Boris, you're innovating on process. Technology scales process, not the other way around. And as an industry, for the longest time, we went out and bought shiny objects and asking them how to use the thing. And then that thing would in turn create process in our store for better or for worse. And they were all most often not coming from people who lived in our industry. So I feel very fortunate that I get to work with you, Adam, and you, Boris, with VinCue. But you guys have to continue pushing us to be better, because that's the only way, in my opinion, that we're going to continue breaking barriers. Boris, you guys think about acquisition uniquely when you have the pressure of churning it as fast as you do. Let's talk about what do we do today to not just keep the momentum, but continue to improve it.
Well, it's funny because again, like I'm hearing like we need to buy more cars. I agree with that. Like it's funny, we were talking initially about look to boot. In that sense, obviously economy is changing. We now have more new cars inventory, the ones that in the new car stores. Toyota is still light in supply, and it will continue to be light in supply. But Kia is ramping up, and as long as the same as the other brands, JM, Motors, Ford, everybody has more. And obviously, when we have a tight process of buying vehicles, that could difficult a little bit the movement of the new vehicle and the used cars that I have in the inventory. Because of that, we started working a couple years ago, but we established a different process early this year. We create something internally that we call buying center. We take a little bit of, I heard what Adam was saying, having more people buying cars, but we took a little bit of pressure from desk managers and from pretty much everybody and kind of centralize who are the ones that are going to help us to get the cars we want and making a fast decision of what we're going to do with these cars. And I'm going to use an example like talking about Toyota product that is really hot. People are putting a lot of money, but we know what it's going to take if we put all the money in a Toyota Corolla today, 2020, how long it's going to take for me to recondition the car through all the process, even though I can be really smart. But probably I'm not willing to offer too much. And we can talk about process internally. What are you doing? But again, we take a little bit out of this and we start giving with this buying center figures to the managers. Hey, we want that car. We need that car here, but you need to buy it this price. If you need to put more because of whatever reason, we can wholesale this car for this amount, but knowing that you're going to lose that metal on the lot that we want. But then the manager has some kind of flexibility to say, okay, we're going to try to get to this right because we want to have the used car to make the money after the process. But if not, because this customer is coming with an offer crazy for whatever, or we want to move this new car, this is the reason, they put the money and the next day the car is wholesale.
Yep.
That allowed us to buy more vehicles because we don't want people walking outside. Even, we have today people that are selling the vehicles even though they're not buying because we're maximizing of the trades. That allowed us to have a better inventory to the right pricing because what Adam said was correct. You can have the car sitting there, but if you don't have the right pricing and the car is not the right one, that's not going to be moving.
Hold on, let me brag on you for a minute. Your Toyota Miami store, I already mentioned this, sells average turn of 19 times a year, but at nearly 105% of market, 104.9% of market. I'm looking at VinCue right now. So you guys are not only able to maximize on churn, you're also maximizing on outperforming the market versus racing bottom of it.
And that's a lot with the pricing. You know, we have these people like they're not sitting in a room, but kind of like they go and see the cars. But this is like okay, how much I can get for this car? How much is gonna take me to retail this car to the maximum amount, and how okay willing to put on the car to do again go through the process, market to the right one, and sell it as fast as possible and retail the car.
Because
That
you're
is
able to
part of the
be
process
That's
because
right.
we know what it is. And again, sometimes this happen. The same person that told this guy, "Hey, don't go over this price," they are the one getting the car at the end, and they are the one that making the decision this day. And they say, "You know what? They only put 500 more. I think we can go through the process and see how we can save money here." And is still trying to retail the car, even though they went a little bit over the pricing they gave him as a benchmark to work. That allowed us to move the car really fast, but also because we have a strict policy that we don't want to keep the car for more than 60 days for a lot of reasons we know. These people are still involved in the process. And 30, 45 days when the month starts, if we know this car is going to take more than at the end of this month, that when we start, it's going to take more than 60 days, they start working together. These buying center work with the desk, go with a list and tell them, hey, this is the wholesale value of these cars today. If you don't sell the car by the end of the month for whatever retail you want, this is how much we're going to get back. That put an incentive on the management to say, this is how much we're going to lose if we don't move the car right now. And they start working more aggressive towards that. But at the end, they know if we need to wholesale the car by the end of the month, a lot of the times, because we buy the car right, we're okay. They don't need to lose money after it even reconditioned, because the way we also, these people on the buying center, they wholesale the car not only in auctions and to wholesalers that comes to buy. They use different tools that now are out that people that are buying cars from online, like Car Offer, sometimes Backlot. You sell these to other dealers that are willing to pay for a frontline ready car more than when you go to the auction. And that's when you maximize that number there. Because they're okay, they say, listen, I can get this much for these cars that is already frontline at the end of the month. If you don't sell it for this price, we want to wholesale the car, we want to make money there, and then we don't need to go the risk. But trying to retail the car, because that's where you're going to make the money. That's where you don't sacrifice the 1-5%. But again, take a lot of discipline, take a lot of people believing in the process and getting into that. And again, we wholesale a lot, and that's not a good thing. You know, when I sit down on my 20 group, they're like, "Are you insane? Are you crazy?" But I say, listen, we're coming from a time that we need to understand the market much better. We're coming from a time that nobody knows how many cars we're going to have, and you know how this is going to move, and how much it's going to depreciate the cars next month. And if we're going to have better supply, if we're going to have less supply, we are in an environment that we cannot control a lot of the variables that we used to control. We know in the past,
especially in
these
Miami.
many cars, in Miami, and these many cars are going to be off fleet from the rental cars, and we know we can buy, and we play with that. We don't have that anymore, and then we need to be conscious about it. That's again taking a lot of discipline, and we're wholesaling a lot, but we retail a lot, and then based on that, we put pressure on that and say we want to make the money, and our goal is retail more cars. The managers know, and then we have internal conversation. Hey, this month we saw these many trades or these many cars that we were trying to buy because we're a buying center too. We get leads from outside. We're trying to buy from the service lane, even though the customer at the end doesn't buy a car in the Toyota store. An issue that we have people that we buy cars from, but we don't have any car to sell them. And then sometimes we need to put it on a waiting list and kind of like take a deposit and put it on a rental car because we buy the car now.
Chasing the question, the fact that you are, I mean, keep in mind where we started this conversation is what did we used to do? And what do we do today? It seems like we've gone a long way. Adam, you keep nodding your head on a lot of things Boris said.
I think what Boris was saying is on the top of the board when we do our training. And by the way, I think training your appraisers is necessary on a continual basis because we're learning on a continual basis. But at the top of the board, at the top of their sheet, every training session starts with everything affects everything. What that means is new car incentives, new car production affect everything. Rental car usage rates affects everything as it relates to used cars. The fact that between 2020 and 2023, Our economy produced 17 million. That's a full year's worth of production in that time. Cars. Those cars will never be built. And so what's happening now with certain manufacturers who don't have the demand, they're continuing to make production. And if you're lucky enough to be with a brand that produces one too few rather than 10 too many, you're experiencing a great time in retail. But there are some out there right now that, for instance, we can talk about Tesla. When they make a $15,000 or $20,000 price adjustment, they're not worried about the used inventory out there. And you have to be aware, and you certainly have to be able to communicate that and be able to have your buyers communicate that with sellers so that you can acquire in today's market so you can sell it in today's market. But I've been burned on Tesla before. And therefore, when we buy them, we buy in the everything affects everything. We buy by starting at retail and figuring out what we have to be in, where we have to be in that car to produce some margin. And keep in mind, at zero margin, I have dock, I have parts profit, I have service profit, I have sales commissions, I have management commissions. That's at zero margin, plus I have F&I. But if I don't buy the car, I make nothing.
That's right. And I'm looking at your numbers.
And I don't support my people in my parts department, my service department, my F&I department, or my sales department.
I'm looking at your numbers in VinCue right now, and you at your Saco store, your North Attleboro store, your Nissan store, and your new Acura store are still having incredible churn and selling all still over 100% to market.
That's the easy part, is building value in your cars, because you train and build value through your team, and you have these facilities that demand that you get better than market value, because you take care of customers in better than market methodology, and you take care of your community in better than market. And I think all of us,
your team to have the inventory mix, because what are they have nothing to sell if the whole team isn't thinking about acquisition.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that selling hot chocolate in Maine in January is easier than selling it in July in Miami.
I'll tell you what, one of the great philosophers of our time, Adam Arens, the stuff that he just drops is just like, you sit there and go, oh, that's absolutely spot on. I always told my wife, Adam, if I ever wrote a book, the title was going to be, I May Not Be Right, but I Ain't Wrong. So, Danny, if I can interject, I'm curious. I want to get your feedback as well as the feedback from our dealers here. And thank you so much for expertly guiding this conversation. A couple things. Number one is when Adam says too few, the 1 too few versus the 10 too many, I've been saying something for quite a long time, and that is not always popular with OEMs until they allow me to get a little deeper into the conversation, but new cars will never be the same again. I see new cars like an elite athlete, professional athlete, that ruptures their Achilles. It's going to take them a year and a half, hard work to get back. When they come back, they will be better than an average performer out there, but they will never be the same again. And that's where I think that we are on new cars. Used cars are so incredibly important, more important than ever, in my opinion, because they used to be the icing on the cake, and now they're the cake itself. And why is that? Well, if you think about it, gentlemen, I'm talking to Joe and Boris and Adam predominantly, but in order for you to have a great new car month at any time from now for the rest of your life, you have to have the right volume of inventory. Is that true? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. You have to have the right kind of inventory, content, pricing, options. True? Okay.
True, yeah.
I have to have compelling rebates, incentives, and programs that will literally make somebody lift their butt off the couch and say, I really need to go see Patriot, or I got to go see South Date or Sheehy today. True?
True.
Okay. Which one of those do you control? None. Okay. On used cars, who controls the volume of inventory? Who controls the average cost of sale? Who controls the ideal mix? Who controls pricing, merchandising, the sales travel rate, everything? I have 100. I don't even have marketing compliance or constraints on my used car side.
Also being more aggressive buying used cars, you can create more demand for new cars.
That's right.
Thank you. And you know what's crazy? Adam said this earlier. listening, the margins are way better, right? The outcome is way better if you're doing it right. So, and you also mentioned Tesla. Tesla was remarkable. Do you know, you talked about overproduction, Adam? Do you know, if you looked at 2 quarters ago, Tesla sold 93% of the cars they produced. Could you imagine? What a novel idea. You sell everything that you produce. I want you to go out and check that out against the current new car trends. And by the way, according to Cox, as of the latest data, which was September, we have 2.76 million new cars on the ground and an 81-day supply. The month before, we had 2.81 million cars on the ground and a 76-day supply. Now, it seems to me, if you have less cars and a higher day supply, I'm not a math major, but that tells me there's another slowdown that's happening. Is that going to impact used car prices, Danny, to your point? 100%. And everything does matter. So I love this conversation. Here's my questions for you guys. If I am sitting here as a dealership and you walked into my store, what's the first thing that would allow you to understand that I have an ideal inventory mix issue, Danny?
What's the first thing that?
What's a surefire sign that I've got an inventory mix issue?
Turn is the number
Lower
one
turn.
thing that I look at.
Do you all agree with that, Joe?
Yes.
So Joe, if that's the case, one of your stores all of a sudden doesn't have the ideal inventory mix, what is the first thing that you would do to help correct that?
That's a good question. I think the first thing I would do is, first identify what the proper inventory is and set a plan to acquire it.
How much of that, Adam, is process-driven, culture-driven, people-driven?
Well, 100%, but I think we all need to understand we never have an ideal inventory mix because fast-moving cars are always in short supply. Slow-moving cars, we'll call them, not in my franchise, but electric cars in Kentucky, just keep
Or Montana.
Yeah, you just keep, they keep shipping them, and they tell you, well, to get the good stuff, you got to take the bad stuff, and then we're not going to tell you what it costs you to have that bad stuff, and then you hope that incentives come out there and that somebody in your family is willing to drive one of those cars at your expense for some extended period of time, right? So, as we all learned in hurricanes, having an electric car in your garage means you have a problem, right? And so for those of us who live on the coast or live in South Florida, the electric car left there for 6 months while I'm gone doesn't work, right? So fast-moving inventory is always in short supply. You have to do what you can without sacrificing the bottom line of your company to acquire fast-moving inventory because you can't keep up unless you have a focus on doing that.
When you guys look at, go ahead, Boris.
I'll mention something that I know doesn't work for every state because everybody has different rules. But you need to be creative a little bit to increase your sales. Is thinking a little bit outside the box. I use a lot of data, but sometimes having the wrong car at the right price, you will sell the car. And then that was a lot to talk about the inventory mix. We did a lot of different tests. Like, okay, we know this is not a car that we want to sell because this is not the right one. But what we need to do with this car? We need to wholesale the car. What about putting first day pictures website, put it there, go below the market and see what is the traction you're going to have with our car, knowing the expectation, and probably just sell the car. And then you have the opportunity to have the F&I and all of that. I don't move these cars in 20 days, but that's the time that it's going to take me to have the title and having all of these. If I don't sell the car in 20 days, I know my exit strategy. I'm not going to spend too much money on this car because I'm going to have it at the right price. We start doing a lot of that, and we are surprised. Like sometimes I know, for example, and this is an example, a Lexus doesn't move in the Toyota store. We don't sell the car. But then I start having that, again, the wrong car based on all the data, based on the market. Nobody buys Lexus on these 5 miles around me. It's a low volume vehicle here. by having it at the right price, you start getting hits from all over the world. Like I start getting hits from New York. They want to buy this car because I have it at the right price, and then I make the money because I didn't wholesale the car, and then I ship it again. Is discipline, be creative, thinking outside the box sometimes, and finding ways to push for retail and kind of move the units. But
hey, Danny, Boris, I love that you just shared that. I mean, obviously, what a unique thing to say. The wrong car at the right price is going to have a buyer, and he's not wrong. He's not wrong. You're going in my book.
That's electric cars by German manufacturers.
It took it a Tesla 3.
For example,
right?
we were talking about Tesla.
But to look at a Tesla 3 2022 at 21 grand, wrong car, right price, it's going to fly out the door.
Correct.
100%.
But not only that, because the $4,000 incentive from the government so far, any car 2 years old below $25,000, you can price a car for $25,000, but when the customer is here, back credit, I have $4,000 that you can use as a down payment. You make all the money.
Have a nice day. Hey guys, I got another question for you. A little different rub on ideal inventory. Danny, I'm curious. So normally when we think of ideal inventory mix, it's always from an audience or prospective buyer perspective, right? What is the right inventory mix when it comes to selling those cars and being able to move them quickly? What role does it play in any of your stores or Danny stores that you work with to be able to understand, and you spoke to this a little bit, Adam, but to understand what the cost of what is the actual cost to me selling that car all in? I'm talking floor plan, I'm talking advertising, I'm talking sales comp. So I understand what the actual variable net of selling this car versus this car. In other words, is there a difference? Is there an ideal inventory mix outbound to sell versus an ideal inventory when it comes to maximizing net profit? Are those one and the same?
I think the ROI on less expensive cars that might produce lower gross dollars might be the best, because you still have all the ancillary profits and you have quick turn. So if you start looking at buckets and bands, and I know everybody has different things that they do, but there was a time in the recent past where people's used cars were priced at or near new cars, and they were using scarcity. Well, the day the scarcity ended, and again, I can pick on Stellantis, but I mean, I have friends who somehow.
Did you just say scarcity and Stellantis in the same sentence?
Yeah, they're not the same thing. but
what?
But you cannot create the market. You are market takers as retailers. We have to take the market that's out there, and we have to be able to shift fast enough and not own things in a market that has moved away from us. And again, we found this wonderful niche in inexpensive electric cars, specifically German manufacturers, that a year old, you can buy them at 40% of retail. What they were, and they look the same, they virtually have the same miles on them, and they still have the same battery life as what they're selling new. Now, we have a rule. We will not sell you an electric car, but we will lease them to you, because we can't predict the market, and that will give us an opportunity. If you want to buy one, we're going to sell you a gently pre-owned one that would be certified or still under manufacturer's warranty. But I will not let you go down the street and buy a new Mercedes or Audi electric car, because you're guaranteed to lose $30,000 or $40,000, and friends don't do that to friends.
David,
go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, no, I mean, what he's saying is spot on. And I want to talk for a minute of how we think about it from a technology perspective, because the contrast that I grew up in, as the indicators or signals out of market day supply and the signals from VRank, that, again, market day supply only looks at if no more come into the market, how many days will it take for them all to disappear? And VRank really only brings in odometer into the mix. But yet we're taking these old signals to make live decisions, very painful. So when we turned that model up on end, we started saying, how do we unlock all of the audience from a CRM to know if it takes 9 leads to sell a single vehicle, what happens to those other 8? And how do we bring that into a machine learning model to begin to help Boris and help Adam with their buy plans? Then competitor demand data. We know that other dealers around us, because Adam and I spoke before this, he's not just thinking right car, right price. He's also thinking right car, right lot. He's moving inventory from location to location to understand how to achieve the highest authentic value out of every vehicle instead of waiting and praying that that car will sell. So that competitor demand, that market demand data, that audience data, mixed in with your own sales data. Listen, we're living in a world of IA, what Adam said, but also of AI, that can bring that data live to an individual, regardless if they've been in the market, in the business for 15 years. It's about empowering those people who aren't impacted by the old legacy thinking, but giving them modern weapons to have hand-to-hand battle to fill those lots. So we're not relegating 3 people at our dealerships to do all of the appraising.
You know, Adam, in the last conversation, Danny, thank you for that. In the last conversation, when we're talking about, sales turn, I believe it was, and you brought in community, you brought in branding, you brought in, taking the time to make a difference in your community and with your own people. And it really is remarkable, and it's true, the positive impact that had on things. I'm curious with you guys, is there anything that would take a less than ideal inventory and frankly mitigate that a bit because of other elements, training, development, branding, things of that nature? Have you seen that, Danny, in stores? Adam, have any of you, Boris, Joe?
I think, David, you broke up a little bit, and you might have to repeat that.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm just curious, because you brought this up in another session, Adam. Is there anything, Danny, and you work with the most stores here, obviously, is there anything that would, if I'd have a less than ideal inventory right now, is there anything that would mitigate that somehow? I mean, you guys Boris brought up, well, price obviously mitigates it a bit if you want to turn it. If I have ancillary sources of income, great F&I department, internal, things of that nature. But what about branding and community, how you're seen there, and philanthropy? Is there anything else that can mitigate or help me if I'm a dealer that's frankly has a less than ideal inventory?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
So you've taught me this, David. You said there
how handy.
there are products that people want to buy, and then there are products that companies have to sell. And it's certainly more fun to sell things that people want to buy. And so when you have less than ideal inventory, there's still audience for them. And so you have to flush that inventory out while changing the culture of your dealership to empower them to have the weapons necessary to bring in the right inventory. But there are things like VIN-specific targeted advertising that still can attract the right audience to that vehicle. And when you start thinking about your inventory management through by activity, right? It's the 20-80 rule. In some stores we see coming on, 20% of their inventory is getting 80% of the audience. That's an indicator of a problem. So we need to flip that so that more than 80% of the inventory is getting the audience. So, but that's a combination, obviously, of getting real heavy and specific when it comes to knowing how to attract it.
Okay, so let's go into a speed round. If you wouldn't mind, Danny, go around the room. One thing that you would impart from all of your experience and what you've learned in your respective positions or organizations, one thing that any dealer watching right now could do, the number one thing they should do right now to help move them towards having the ideal inventory on a consistent basis. Because frankly, getting there one time, who cares? You got to get there on a consistent basis to really make a difference. Go ahead, Danny.
For me, change the technology that you use in order to change the process. Because until you do that, you're going to be doing the same thing in the same old system. And it's really hard to remodel a house that way.
And I'm going to take a stab what technology that might be. VinCue. But I will say this. I'll tell you what. You never mind people putting their chest out and saying, hey, I saw this on the Olympics. If you could back it up Put it out there. And your solution is remarkable. There's a reason why Boris uses it, Adam uses it. It's a remarkable solution. It goes so far beyond. I loved vAuto when it came out. I had Auto Exchange before then. Auto Exchange, people forget Auto Exchange was before vAuto. You know, just like we had Friendster, and then we had MySpace, and then Facebook figured it out, right? And they all kind of played a role, but Facebook is the one that stuck. So I appreciate what the innovators did up until then, but the world has changed. The landscape has changed, and you need modern technology, period. So I love what you guys are doing there at Team VinCue. Thank you. Boris, one thing that anybody watching this can and needs to do right now today to move towards a consistent ideal inventory.
I'm going to say something about VinCue and obviously vAuto and all the tools that are out. And when I say before, being an open mind, try different things, that's one thing. You know, being an open mind is like, yeah, I'm working this way. This is working for me right now. But let me see what else is outside. Let me see what I can learn from other tools. Let me see what else is doing. That was one of the main reasons. Again, everybody took the vAuto Kool-Aid. In some point, I'd sit down with my team and say, we need to start doing something different because we're doing the same thing everybody's doing. This is not going to change the way we're performing. If we want to be on top, we need to do different things. And then that's why we start looking for tools. We get with VinCue, and after a couple of meetings, we understand the vision and all that. So like this adapts to what we want to do. And the one thing that I recommend to do is go back to the basic and the process you are using to acquire units. Are you happy with that? Go back to the tools and the data that you are using to have the right inventory. This is what I want. Go back to create, check the turn that I have. I'm happy with the result. This is what I want. And doesn't matter the tool you're using, you will get all of that. And then based on that, own the process and kind of define what I want to do and create a discipline and a strict process based on that. And then measure the results after a couple months and then keep innovating in that process. If we set a process on stone and then we let that run and then that's it, I'm gonna trying to, it's not gonna work. Is go back to the basics.
Hold it accountable.
What everybody's doing. Like the funny thing sometimes will happen in the dealers, you go back and ask one manager, what are we doing? He will tell you a completely different thing than the others one. It's like not having the same people in the room. Like, this is the way we're going to do it. Are we all at the same page? Are we all doing the same? And then you can measure the process. But
I love it.
Before you do that, it's going to be impossible.
Absolutely spectacular advice. Joe, how about you? What's one thing that I can and should be doing today? And by the way, I want to preface this. Are you just as confounded, all of you, by the fact that people have such high degree of loyalty and commitment to processes and solutions that have failed them month after month after month after month? I mean, at what point do you say, I don't know, nothing's going to change until I change. Nothing's going to change until my technology changes. So it confounds me that people will hold on for dear life to things that are causing them to come up short month after month after month. Joe, how do I break that cycle? What's one thing I can do today? We've heard technology, we've heard Boris say, hey, open your mind up. If you're not getting where you want to go, you're going to have to go a different route and change. What would you say, Joe?
Yeah, I think, we need to all find our niche and our market and figure out a way to be the very, very best at that niche, whatever that is, whether it's selling EVs, whether it's selling pickup trucks or whatever it is, find what works. If it's not working, find the next thing. It may only work for 6 months. It may work for 90 days, but if it's not working, switch quickly. And I think that's part of using our technology and being, nimble on our feet. And usually that works. Sorry about that. I got
one of your employees is crying, Joe. It must be an appraiser. I'm guessing it's an appraiser.
Future employee.
I love it. Adam, you're batting cleanup. And you've hit some balls. I'm not gonna lie to you. You've hit some things out of the park, man. But as you all have. So, Adam, what would you say? What do I need to do in order to break loose of this cycle of not getting where I need to go, not having a profitable department, not hitting the sales volume, not growing, and not getting the ideal inventory?
Well, I'm gonna make it kind of simple because you don't have to change the world to change the world, and that is change what you measure, you'll change what you get. If your daily sales report isn't distributed to everybody in the store, including technicians and parts people, with the following: how many new, how many used, what the gross was, what the dock was, including F&I, how many vehicles we acquired through trade, how many vehicles we acquired through purchase, regardless, on a daily basis, how many ROs we wrote, and what the parts department produced, which is all available to you. And it's push one button, give it to everybody, and then you can now make people aware of those things. If you want something easy and you have the authority to do this, start paying $50 more for every deal that has a trade, so that people stop running off trades, even though they still might, because there's CarMax down the street and your trade appraiser doesn't get off their butt, or he sends people away. And the last thing I'll say is the reason we don't get 100% TO in our stores is we don't take 100% TOs. So have a process, hold the people accountable to it, and then you can train people who think they're already trained. And if you do it once a week for 16 minutes or less, you'll actually see their behaviors change.
I love that, and I appreciate that. I'm just going to throw one last thing out and question. From a salesperson's perspective, if I up you right now, and if I ask you what you're trading in, and you say you don't have a trade-in, am I happy or disappointed?
Right?
Disappointed.
Okay, wait. Is the deal going to take more time or less time? Did it become more complex or less complex?
I've never seen salespeople
Same
work
thing.
harder for a flat
Right.
in my life.
And Adam, if I don't have that trade, is it going to impact my commission $1? No. So wait, do I get recognition? No. Acknowledgement? No. And we wonder why we don't get those appraisals. And then somebody said, wow, that's a salesperson's perspective. I said, really? So if that salesperson comes to the desk and Adam says, hey, David, you've been with that person for quite a while. What's going on? They're in the booth. I've got a write-up right here. Oh, what are they trading in? Great news, boss. No trade-in, clean deal. Does that sales manager go, this is an outrage? We will go no step further until I see an appraisal. No, same deal. Deal just got easier to desk, faster, less complex, no friction, don't have to piss off a customer, and it will not affect my income. By the way, you want a stat that just shocks me? That's so different from pre-pandemic. When I look at all the data for all the dealers I work with across the country, and you know me, I'm a data freak, had created reverse risk, right? I mean, if you cut me, there's data coming out, not blood. So here's the thing, Boris, this is crazy. I'll measure it for your stores. That of all the deals that are desked, that produced subsequently a wholesale car, a car that was an acquisition, between 65 and 85% have UAs, not OAs. It used to be the opposite. If you have 65 to 85% UAs, something tells me you're hitting deals too hard, cars too hard, and you're missing out on acquisitions. Do you guys agree?
Agree.
Yeah,
You guys, so anybody watching, check that out. And for all of you, Adam Arens from Patriot Auto Group, Joe Blanco from Sheehy Auto Group, Boris, Lopez, South Dade, and Danny, thank you so much for moderating. This has been such a great conversation. I've taken some great notes here. I'm sure that many people have. But if you want to get a complete summary, a recap, and a blueprint of what these gentlemen just shared with you to help you transform your inventory into the ideal inventory mix consistently, please hit us up. I'll give a link on LinkedIn, and you'll be able to download it absolutely free. So, gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to join. This has been absolutely invaluable to me, as well as I'm sure to everybody watching. Wishing you guys all the best as we move towards the end of the year, and best of wishes. Happy holidays to you all. Hope I see you soon.